All right, what started out life as a 68 custom deluxe reverb reissue has now become something much more. I went to great lengths, got a real thick fiberglass FR4 board, really pretty little turrets, lovely sounding components. The vintage sound achieved a different, more reliable way. All new jacks, all new pots. It really came out great. And overall, I'm very proud of the work. You see I got some J-taper pots where necessary. And while it doesn't have the traditional Fender layout, it's optimized. Here, for instance, here's the tone stack for this channel, all the way over here, away from everything else. That way you only have to run one wire from the right side of things over to that. Little Panasonic caps sound great. Carbon film for low noise and reliability. Just looks jewel-like. But I made a mistake. I didn't make the same mistake Fender did on the 68 Custom. On theirs, they join these plates and just have one coupling cap, and that is a more active mixer. You lose less level, but there's also less decoupling, and it's noisy. Mine is also noisy temporarily, though I have done this in the past on 68 Customs and other Fenders where they have, or other amps where they've messed up in how they mix the channels to put reverb and trim on both channels. Mine is noisy because the wire from here to here and then to the reverb, subsequent reverb components is on the bottom of the board, and it's running next to a lot of DC and other AC wires. And I need to take all this lovely work apart and remove everything from the front and flip the board up. Hopefully I won't have to remove everything to do that. And disconnect the wire from here to here and then to the next stage, and recreate that on top of the board away from everything else, which is what Fender did in the 60s, AB763 deluxe reverbs, of course. And there are good reasons for that. It's frustrating. You know, on paper, there's no difference. In practice, it'll be much quieter to get the wire up top. And this is the second one of these I've done. And on future ones, I will do that up top from the get-go. It's always a learning process. I could literally sit down and draw you the complete AB763 Deluxe Reverb schematic, start to finish with no mistakes. I know the circuit really well, but the physical implementation can vary depending on other factors. So, got to get in here and make it right. I really do hate the sound of these Ultex Sharps. They're really mega bright, but the transparency is real nice for putting knobs on Fenders. So, they got that going for them, which is nice. Okay, all the changes have been made, and these three blue wires up top here, let me get a pointer, replace the wires that used to be on the bottom. These look really small, they're Teflon coated, they're absolutely fine. Now, there's a little bit of sensitivity on this wire right here, not on these two. This would have been the wire beneath the board that was the problem, and if I bring my hand close to it, it's real bad problems. But, overall right now, the amp sounds noisy. When it's in the cabinet though, it will be shielded, and all that noise goes away, and that sensitivity is still there for right now. I'm going to shield that wire, replace that blue wire with some shielded cable to eliminate that. So this will be the noise floor of the actual amp. But for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna leave it off for right now. So we'll just have a slightly noisy amp in this part of the video, on this amp. I'll do another one when it's done, which is imminent. So yeah, I gotta replace that blue wire with some shielded. It's just very sensitive. It's because it's a very high impedance node, 3 meg resistor going to a grid. It's just one of those things. I'll show more. The other consideration before we do anything else is I've got a really cheap cable hooked up to a foot switch to turn the tremolo on and off. And at the moment of switching, because it's a shielded box, and the box is not shielded to the jack. It's just something I usually use for other purposes. There's noise put on the reverb when I touch it. So ignore that. When I'm not touching it, it's not as much of a problem. It does also raise the noise level of the amp because this box is not at ground. So maybe if I do that, that'll be better. Well, it's a little bit better, but this paint keeps it from being the thing. This is not my usual foot switch solution, but they've got a TRS jack on these things. So this will work for now. The remaining issue on this amp is very frustrating, and that's the roach is no good. Here's the tremolo. Sounds great, you might think, but when you turn on the tremolo, the actual level drops. So here's without tremolo. With. And what that means is that this is supposed to go from like 10 meg to almost 0 ohms. It's not going anywhere close to 10 meg. It's just not going open enough. So when the tremolo is pulsing, it actually brings down the level even when it's not supposed to be. So I need to change out the roach. Roaches are a neon bulb which flashes into a light-dependent resistor, an LDR. And sometimes those LDRs just aren't up to snuff. And this is the case on this one. It was sounding good when I first tested this amp before I ran into this problem. But it is not staying the course. And if I'm gonna have a roach failure, which sounds really catastrophic and embarrassing, I'd rather it happen here than when the client gets the amp. So let me just run through what the amp is sounding like otherwise. So I don't have the shielding on top. I've got this very sensitive cable. I'm gonna unplug the tremolo foot switch for the rest of this so the reverb doesn't have that noise added from the unshielded run. I don't think this TRS cable here is shielded. And there's a little bit of noise just because the guitar's a foot from the transformers. So with that in mind, here's my version of a deluxe reverb. So on the vibrato channel, on the standard ones, and that may not seem quite right to some of you guys. Those of you who really know a deluxe reverb, that's gonna sound kind of scooped and glassy and a little too pretty. That's because I added a mid spot. So here I've got it about 8:30. Noon on a twin is here about 8. Mids on a stock deluxe reverb are about 10 o'clock. Full mids on a twin. From noon up, you get into the range of boost. So that's a nice addition to deluxe reverb. 10 o'clock, stock deluxe reverb. About 8 o'clock, noon on a twin, noon, dimed on a twin, and then above that you got some raunch and some more mids, and just makes it very versatile. Really great with the Telecaster or Les Paul, though I'm just using the Strat for right now. The rest of the circuit, aside from the way the reverb mixing is done, is quite stock, though it does not have a bright cap. Deluxe reverb does not need a bright cap. Has the correct J-taper pots for treble and volume on each channel. As I mentioned before, it's biased about 55% idle dissipation, which is a great place for a deluxe to be. You can go hotter if you want to. You're not buying a lot with that. And then the reverb is a little bit tricky because I did not use the standard linear taper pot because you get all the reverb at 3. So it's 0 to 3, and above that it's Surf City. I used an audio taper pot, which means if I put the reverb on 3, it's pretty subtle. If I go to 5 or 6, let's go 5.5. That's about 3 on a standard Fender reverb. So instead of having all the range of the control, I'll show you on this knob, between here and here, which is really a small range of control for all the subtle stuff. The subtle stuff is now from 7 o'clock to noon. And then above that you have control and can go into Surf City if and you want. So let's surf out for a little bit. Let's just confirm that lack of shielding being the cause of that noise. So it surfs, it turfs, but you have real fine control over the subtle ranges. So that's the what would have been the reverb channel, the vibrato channel on a 60s amp. And we already have that. And both channels now have reverb and tremolo, so we don't need to have that over here. So over here, this channel, let me take off the panel so you can see inside, because it's prettier than looking at this piece of metal. This is now a super reverb. A lot more lower mids. Doesn't have the mids pot, it's got the fixed mids, though it's not the 6.8K. It is a value I chose. It is fixed as if you're playing the vibrato channel of a super reverb with the mids at noon. And so it's not anything that Fender has ever offered in this form, but that way you've got super reverb over here with tremolo and all that, and you've got the deluxe on the other side, which can also sound like the twin if you turn this down, or create new things if you turn it up. I think it's very versatile. If I were building this amp from scratch rather than starting with an existing Fender, I would have given a mids pot to this channel, and I would have had this mids pot on the front panel, and each channel would have independent reverb controls and a switch which lets you assign the vibrato to one or both or neither. But this is, this is not a fully custom amp. It is a inside the box is fully custom, but I had to use the same box, so. I think it sounds lovely. All right, now it's even more lovelier. Is that right? More lovelier. It's pretty. So I got some origami shielded cable here. Took that noise out of this. That was the one that was hypersensitive. These two blue wires here are sensitive if I touch them, and just very slightly compared to how much of a live wire this was. But there are a lot of wires in the amp that if you tap on them or use capacitance on them, like your body, will make noise. Once the shielding is in place, that's not going to be a concern, and all that sensitivity is gone. It's not prone to vibrations. So if I build another one of these, I'm going to redesign the board a little bit to allow me to do shielded runs more easily. Should never need to do a shielded run this short, but it's just, it is a grid. I think honestly, once it's all in place, the chassis and the shielding inside the cabinet will complete the shield. That's assuming that this particular reissue still has the shielding on the inside of the top of the cabinet, because that stuff rips off on the reissues all the time. I don't have the cabinet. Anyway, it's sounding great.